Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is May 14th, and we're going to start today's episode with a question. And what is your favorite Pop-Tart flavor? Mine, I think, is probably strawberry.
Is toaster strudel an option?
Oh, yeah, toaster strudel is better. I had toaster strudel for that big meeting we had the other day. That was like a reward for having to do a really long meeting.
Fun times. That day was back-to-back meetings for me.
It was, yeah. It was like nonstop all day.
Fun times. Why does it even matter? Ron's getting his internet fixed, so he can't be here because the internet getting fixed obviously is more important.
Yeah.
He's going to be out all week because that's how we roll. But you know who else rolls with things? And it's like, wait a minute, what's going on now?
Exclusive. U.S. eyes curb on China's access to AI software behind apps like ChatGPT.
Let me just search and replace that headline for you. The U.S. is eyeing curbs to China's access to math.
That's tough because a lot of math was...
Yeah, a lot of Chinese mathematicians.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of a problem for the U.S. Once
Yeah.
again, the U.S. is not attacking the right problem, but got some news for you. It's already out there. So are we going to go back to classifying software as munitions? I really hope not, because that was some dark age stuff. But this is what's all the buzz on Reuters, so okay. Also, not to be outdone.
Oh no! U.S. revokes Intel Qualcomm licenses to sell chips to Huawei.
So it turns out Huawei is doing well with what limited access they have, and they're doing well on their own. And so the U.S. looks at it and says,
We're going to limit that too.
yeah, we got to ratchet this up a notch.
Did you see the picture on this article? I was like, oh, weird choice to go with the one with like the pink-haired anime girl when they were looking for stock photos, but all right.
Was this AI generated?
I always have that thought now.
Was
I
it
should have
generated-
it all the time. We'll have a story about that.
Generated on Huawei hardware? But you know who is building new AI hardware?
Defense think tank MITRE to build AI supercomputer with NVIDIA.
I mean, at this point, who's not building an AI supercomputer with NVIDIA?
Yeah, seriously. And also, like, obviously, U.S. government all over that. So,
The AI FOMO is real.
yeah.
It's sort of nuts.
Maybe a bubble.
Yeah, well,
Maybe a little
it's
bit of a
like,
bubble.
we can get one rack of Blackwell GPUs for $5 million. And it's like, oh, we should definitely jump on that. And it's like, you make hinges here. That's what your job is, to make hinges.
You need AI for that.
How do you suppose that? Okay, sounds good. But you know what else is horribly broken?
SEC's Gensler turns tide against crypto in courts.
If you're keeping score against crypto, the SEC is going pretty hard after crypto, but they're kind of stumbling a little bit because their lawyers have lied. Some of their lawyers have left, but mostly the courts have been siding with the SEC, and they're going pretty hard against crypto. Some of it's justified, some of it's not. They're basically saying that all crypto is a scam, and there is a lot of crypto that is a scam, but there's a lot of crypto that's not a scam. So I don't know.
This would be if Ryan was here. This would be the moment where I would say, world digital currency or whatever.
Yeah, the world digital currency is coming, and that will definitely not be a scam, or that might be the biggest scam of them all. The stabilized world digital currency, whatever. Actually, if I'd paid attention to sorting, the next one that I would have is the one about FTX people getting their money back. That's later in the episode.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't bother to sort that.
I thought you were saying that there's actually is one about WorldCoin, I think, as well.
No, we're going to give you a little potpourri of government-focused nonsense.
RFK Jr. sued Daily Kos. Things are not going well for him. Is it KOS?
This is a website that we feature news stories from sometimes. Somebody posted a comment critical of RFK Jr.
An anonymous comment.
Yeah.
Crucially.
And so they sued to try to figure out who it was. And over the 10 years this has been playing out, the person accidentally outed themselves. And they kept venue shopping. And so all of the judges are basically done with it.
RFK Jr. tried to get this the court in New Jersey to take it, because apparently they would maybe be more lenient on him. And then they looked at it and they were like...
The commenter is not in New Jersey. RFK Jr. is not in New Jersey. No party.
Nobody is in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And New Jersey was like, we don't want this. This is more work for us.
Daily Kos is in California. Daily Kos is trying to file an anti-SLAPP suit in New York because the judge in New York really probably shouldn't have allowed this through. And it's like, this looks like a lawsuit made to silence people. So that might be good. And there's a
they're
little
in
bit of
California.
schadenfreude there in that Daily Kos is winning this quite handily without spending $1 million. So that's nice. Although,
Kind of a good news story, sort of.
why do people in government have that kind of disposable money? Somebody can just piss away $1 million on a lawsuit about an anonymous internet commenter. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's just insane. Do you know how much, like, the entire Gnome Foundation runs on less than $100,000 a year, which is crazy. Well, they're running at a deficit of $100,000 a year, which is that's a story for another day.
Was it this guy also this week? And I just saw the headline, so I don't know all the details, but it was something about how he had brainworms or something at one point, and I was like, what?
Right. Michael, and then it died.
Something Baldur's Gate 3? He's got mind flayer parasites?
I don't know. And
Yeah.
then the 404 media headline.
An open database leaks submissions to Utah's transphobic bathroom bill snitch form.
So basically, if you fill out the form, you've lost your info.
But apparently a lot of people were trolling this anyway, so it's probably like, goofy names.
Yeah, probably.
Mike Hunt. A lot of those kind of submissions. I once we got that whole list of names that were like, don't let people like this fill out the form. And that was one. That was
and
for
then
something
there's
else.
this obvious headline is obvious.
U.S. official says Chinese seizure of TSMC in Taiwan would be absolutely devastating, surprising no one.
Do you know why? It's because TSMC has the world-leading, and has had for many generations now, process which we make our most advanced microprocessors with. Taiwan #1.
It's just enough to make you a little nervous.
But you know who's not #1? Big Tech.
This was a good story. Despite big tech lobbying, Maryland passes 2 internet privacy bills.
So one of these is going to limit platforms' ability to collect data in general, and another one has to do with
Gamification and
algorithmic. This is actually kind of a follow-up to what we talked about last week, but there's more information here about how Maryland expects these laws to be implemented.
Yeah, it's like they can't have. My favorite part was like, we've now codified into law that you can't have auto-playing video, and I'm like, this used to just be common user experience practice, but now it's everywhere, and now we have to have a law about it.
Yeah, that's especially with underage. Like,
Yeah.
I would be okay if we just outlawed children on the internet. I mean, that would be fine.
Well, I mean, kids still need it for educational purposes,
Well,
but
parents-
nobody needs auto-playing video.
It should be denied by default, and parents have to opt in to getting their kids on the internet.
No. Yeah,
And
kids or parents should be paying attention to what their kids are looking at on the internet.
And
Period.
If it wasn't for that pesky, like, okay, parent, identify yourself to prove that you have given your child permission, that's where it gets a little insidious.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for that, although, you could just make those kinds of changes in your home network, and then no one outside your home would have to do anything special. Just by the design of your network at home, it's like, this is my computer, and my login is allowed to get on the internet. No other login in my house is allowed to get on the internet. Ta-da! Problem solved.
But how can they weaponize that if you don't?
It's like, oh, they're not allowed to get on at school. It's like, again, that'd probably be between the parent and the school, which they already have lots of paperwork flying back and forth. Seems like that would be pretty solvable. I don't know.
We used to have permission slips for that.
And then
Like
it's
for
like-
computer lab stuff. It was like, your student's going to have access to computer. Are you okay with that? And everyone always just said yes.
And then everybody, I guess there's the argument that kids might buy disposable phones, but
With what money?
that seems like that was just as much of a threat for buying cigarettes. It's like, if it's good enough for cigarettes, it's probably good enough for the internet, right? Like, whatever controls we have for that. Speaking of things that lack controls,
Leaked FBI email reportedly shows desperation to justify warrantless wiretaps.
this is follow-up to the Section 702, and it's, oh my gosh, it's one of those facepalm things where in the memos it says things like, now, this is foreign intelligence surveillance, but we scoop up some Americans' data. But we can ask questions of this database about Americans, even though this is not supposed to be about Americans, and this is not supposed to be a backdoor way to get Americans' data. But
It kind of is. This email's also from like April, so they know it's
Yeah.
recent.
so it's like, hey, do we have any wins that we can show worked really well with our surreptitious backdoor access to this thing that's not supposed to be about American citizens? No, that's the desperation that they're talking about in the headline. I think that's a little bit of a mischaracterization, but it does suck that when law enforcement knows that the data exists somewhere, they will go after it. It's like, oh, how long before they're just doing like select star from Walmart purchases where we deem the purchase suspicious. And it's like, here's a list of people. That's
Yeah.
probably already happening.
Yeah, say if you ever bought a grow light, you're on a list.
Speaking of people who are on a list,
Tesla is being investigated for securities and wire fraud for self-driving claims.
isn't Elon Musk having self-driving claims going back like a decade?
Yeah, I mean, we've been making jokes about this for years on this program. So
What changed? What's different?
it's fashionable to go after him right now. I mean,
It's 2024. What 2019.
probably
Like,
worth going after him, but it's funny that it's now.
If anything, he's toned down some since 2019. Like, he's not making as egregious claims about self-driving today as he was in 2019. So why now?
Speed of government, maybe.
Speaking
The slow poke meme, they're getting there.
speaking of things that change rapidly,
Microsoft, Google seek green card rule change.
so this is to do with people that, it's like we want to bring people in that know what they're doing to work on really technical things a little more easily. Meanwhile, haven't there been a lot of tech layoffs? Like Google's laid
Yes.
off a lot of technical people.
Well, and I can't remember if it was this article or another one. It might have been another, because they mentioned specifically, I think it was Meta, like they would purposely make it much more difficult for American applicants, where like someone who was from overseas could just email all their stuff. But if you were in the US, you had to manually, like physically mail your application.
I mean, in Google's case, it was, we have these people doing these Python jobs. It was not just the Python team, but it's like we have these people doing these Python jobs, and they're really good at it. But gosh darn it, they cost too much.
Yeah,
We figure that we
that's
can
what it
hire
is.
somebody in another country that doesn't even have to come here. They can just work remotely. And that'll cost less. And so we're going to fire all the people that work on this so that other people that will work for less will come do it. And then there's this.
Well, yeah, then the government doesn't like that because they want Americans employed. So
I could go either way. On the one hand, it's like if we need more skilled people here, which will result in those skills diffusing among other people. Like we're going to bring a bunch of people here and we're going to learn how to do something that we don't know how to do, or we're going to bring industry here that we don't know how to do, but we can teach, a pocket, an enclave of people, if you will. Okay, maybe. But how much of this is like an American skills gap work ethic thing, and how much of this is we just want to pay people less?
I think it's mostly just they want to pay people less. Like, I mean, there's probably a little bit of that too, but I think a lot of it is just we don't want to pay as much.
It is weird that Microsoft laid off all those game developers and closed all those studios that they said would really make it a more diverse something for game development. And then stuff like this happens. Like there's a bit of a juxtaposition there. Engagement challenge. Were you affected by this? Below, a lot of our audience was. A lot of career shifting. So let us know. Engagement challenge below.
Oh, you haven't given the lead. All right. Blah, 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 blah.
No transition.
We're just straight up. Ryan usually does the transitions. We're lost today. The U.S. House version of KOSA, still a censorship bill, surprising no one.
Kids Online Safety Act. So this is a little bit of look at the dancing monkey distraction. But
Yeah.
This is the Kids Online Safety Act has a lot of things in it that will negatively impact not children. And again, it's like, what would be great is to just be a parent and not let your kid on the internet.
Yeah. Or just we've talked about this before too, where it's like maybe all the social media companies could give all of us the opportunity to opt out instead of being so worried about children. Like, let's just let everybody opt out. But they won't let us do that.
It's hard for me to understand the difference between, smoking and it's like kids shouldn't smoke. I think we can all agree on that. And yet they'll still find a way. Just like they'll find a way to get on the internet, even if they're not supposed to be on the internet.
And it's used so much for education. Like, who hasn't spent their Saturday night just browsing Wikipedia? Probably nobody in this audience. We've all done that.
I think it would be good to do that, like as a parental activity, or even just a whitelist, like as a like doing the parental thing. It's like, okay, here's the list of the 12 websites that you're allowed to go on, and I can kind of keep an eye on it. That seems reasonable.
The very first PC my family got, one of the only things on it, we didn't really have reliable internet at that time. We had Microsoft Encarta. And it only had like a handful of articles and videos and stuff on it, but I would just go through and read all of it all the time.
I require information.
Yeah. I mean, that's what kids do. They're curious.
Speaking of folks that want to keep an eye on what you're doing online, more so than children's parents, apparently.
CISA FBI resuming talks with social media firms over misinformation removal, Senate Intel chair says. Kind of a hard one to read with the overlay. But
this is another one of those articles that about the on-again, off-again relationship between law enforcement and social media. So Elon Musk doesn't want to play ball with Twitter/X. He's got his own agenda probably. But law enforcement is sort of cozying up again to Meta, and they're saying, hey, we think you should probably demote this post and downrank this post. And for the videos that terrorists post, okay, like moderators on those platforms developing psychological issues, okay, like there's a whole dimension of that to worry about. But a lot of the time, stuff that comes up in this is, hey, we don't want to talk about this. It's like, this seems like reasonable dissent, or this seems like a reasonable crazy person that should be exposed. Like if they want to, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yeah.
And so it's like, this person wants to post the dumbest thing I've ever read. And it's like, oh, that's how
I now need to work that into my understanding of this person.
Yeah. There's an aspect of this that is that. But there is also a genuine fear, I guess, from the FBI and other law enforcement that a lot of really dumb people will read that and then act upon the bad information. But it seems like the only inoculation from the bad information is to make sure that the dumbest person on the internet understands how dumb what they're reading is, which may be an impossible task, but there we go.
We'll talk more about that in the AI section.
Speaking of which,
Germany's FM says Russia will face consequences for intolerable cyber attack. That will probably be a strongly worded letter, as we keep doing to each other.
Yeah, things in that whole region around Germany and Poland have really ratcheted up. And
there's been some doom headlines out of there this week.
This is a malicious behavior that is directed towards utility companies, water companies, and people that provide critical infrastructure services. There may have been some intrusions. There may have been some exploits, some disruptions, some cryptocurrency or crypto malware, which probably results in cryptocurrency payments.
Was it this week? Was it the Polish head of spying said something about like Russia's going to do something like?
Yeah, it's
not great.
Not great. Something. If you're keeping your eye on the pulse of that, this is a reasonable summary article, but also just underscores how bad our cybersecurity practices and policies are. I mean, your local water company is not spending the money that they should on cybersecurity, and or they really should not be putting those pumps on the internet, no matter how convenient it is.
I'm really close to like the water company here, so like I'll pass it when I walk, like where they pump the water actually out. And like I could just walk in there. Like there's a fence, but it's not well constructed. I could walk in.
I go by there on my phone and it's like, that's weird. There's an open Wi-Fi network. That doesn't seem good.
Yeah.
That's probably bad. Speaking of things that are probably bad.
French regulator fines Google $271 million, that's a strange font, over generative AI copyright issue.
Okay, so the CIO headline is slightly misleading. This is really, Google agreed to talk to newspaper publishers and other online publishers about fair remuneration. That was, I guess, the French translation of using their material and linking to it. So it's not just generative AI, it's also just linking in search results. Generative AI does figure into it a little bit. But this talks a little bit about how Google has basically just checked out. Like Google said, okay, we're gonna work on that together. There's gonna be some fair remuneration. Everybody happy with this? Yeah, that seems reasonable. And here we are, a year, 18 months later, nothing has happened. And so the French regulator says, well, it doesn't look like you followed through. The generative AI part is really just a headline grab. It's really just more to do with the fact that stuff from these French organizations turns up on Google searches and
word for word,
and also turns up in generative AI and everything else. Like it's clear that Google is indexing or consuming the content offered on the internet from these companies. So interesting nuance there. We probably could have sorted this a little, but that's fine. Yeah, this really should have been sorted with the Germany story, but that's okay.
Thousands of flights to and from Europe affected by suspected Russian jamming.
It's Russia.
It's almost certainly Russia.
It doesn't need to be suspected. It's like it's weird. GPS stops working because apparently you can just put a bunch of fertilizer in a prop plane like you use for crop dusting and just send it on its merry way, and it'll get there. But you know what won't get there is your packets on that undersea fiber optic cable that's running near Yemen.
Yemen's submarine cable repairs hindered by political dispute.
So there were 4 cables that were damaged. 3 of the 4 have been repaired. The 4th one is the repair has stalled, and this is wild because the Yemen government says, okay, we think these companies are using this fiber line and we don't like those companies. Can you tell us what kind of traffic is traveling over this fiber line in order for us to allow you to repair it? It's like,
no.
guys, it's the internet. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff going over some percentage of,
How much of this is anime stuff? Then we'll let you repair it.
So
we have a really good nonsense story about.
Yeah, okay. Repairing the internet cables should always be apolitical. Like, we just need better connectivity.
Yeah. In current year, we need connectivity everywhere.
Can not repairing this negatively impact Yemen's economy somehow? Because then it would get fixed.
You would think, yeah.
Because this is the whole world. This is Saudi Arabia is kind of setting the example for the whole world in terms of internet connectivity.
Saudi Arabia's internet usage hits 99% in 2023.
The 52.3% spend more than 7 hours a day on the internet.
I was about to say that's a lot, but I mean, I guess we work on the internet all day, so that makes sense.
Yeah, go Saudi Arabia. But also, it would be easy to, I wonder how much of that is productivity and how much of that is staring into the abyss that is the internet. And so it's just.
I would assume there's no way that can't at least be some productivity.
It would have to be, it would have to be hugely productive. It's like, oh, we're just goofing off on the internet all day. I mean, I know Saudi Arabia is a wealthy country, but I mean, come on, really?
Well, it can't be good for your mental health being on the internet like that.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're playing Helldivers all day, you're probably feeling pretty good.
Oh, we have an update on that too.
We also have an update on VPN usage in parts of India.
Man booked for using VPN in J&K's Rajouri. Third such case in 2 days.
So by booked, they mean arrested. So it's like, oh, you're using a VPN in India?
Booked for an Airbnb.
I was expecting this to be some sort of third world banana republic, but no, India. We have a lot of audience in India. Comment below and say hello. And also, WTF? Is this
maybe don't comment if you're not.
Is this the Alabama of India? I don't understand. With apologies to anybody that happens to be living in Alabama.
Is Alabama that bad? I would say Florida. Florida is kind of the worst.
Parts of Florida.
Yeah.
It's like Florida.
If we're talking about
country.
trashiness, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we don't have a lot of room to talk. We're from Kentucky, but we can always dunk on Florida.
I like the Lewis Black bit where he talks about Clinton bragging about his time being the governor of Alabama, and it's like, oh, I took it from 50th to 49th in education. It's like, what was the miracle? Pencils?
Yeah, so good job.
Also, we got to follow up on this from last week.
TikTok sues U.S. government over law forcing sale or ban. This is a big story this week.
This is pretty cool. They're using U.S. laws to say, hey, this is contrary to U.S. law, which is actually pretty awesome, really.
Well, I'm sure we'll have lots of updates on this. I feel like this is going to be a potentially multi-year thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they said they're supposed to have it sold by next year, but
it is pretty
they can
wild.
probably just indefinitely drag it through the courts.
It is pretty wild that ByteDance is not going down without a fight. But we always do the stories about there's a VPN app in the Apple App Store, and China goes to Apple and says, hey, we would like for you to take that down. And Apple says, okie dokie, can do. And then there's this where the U.S. government asks TikTok to divest or do something, and TikTok says no. And so TikTok is putting up more of a fight than Apple does taking down apps, which is interesting.
Well, to be fair, this goes after their profits. I think if China asked Apple to just sell everything to China, they'd probably be like, no, because they want the money.
That is a little different.
Yeah.
But it is usually the case that you have to have a Chinese-owned subsidiary in China. So it's not Apple and Cupertino in China. It's some company that Apple is working with locally in China. At least usually that's the case. And then TikTok decided to have this blog post that's like, hey, we're just trying to do the right thing.
Partnering with our industry to advance AI transparency and literacy.
So it's saying, hey, we're going to use our TikTok empire for the good of humanity, training AI and releasing all of this stuff. And we've got the TikTok educational channels, and there's a lot of good upside in TikTok. We also contribute positively to both the world and U.S. economies.
I mean, it's just a fluff piece, but I will say it does contribute positively in terms of sometimes I see a video that makes me laugh. There's probably a lot of other net negatives, but sometimes a funny meme gets posted.
But do you know what does not make Rupert Murdoch laugh? It's when AI learns how to write news stories. Actually, this is
Not really writing,
Yeah.
summarizing.
There's a lot
Kind of like
news-
what we do.
News writers are probably unhappy too. Gosh, it's going to be a dark time when we're doing this with AI generated stories. Like at that point, it's just like, oh, it's just time to hang this up and go back to working on the Linux kernel.
We're probably already there, right? We've probably summarized a few of these that are just summaries. It's just summaries all the way down.
AI generated summaries with mistranslations. Just it's all badly done.
X launches stories delivering news summarized by Grok AI. Does anyone care about Grok AI? I certainly don't. I think you have to pay for it, right?
I was able to get they released one of the models, but it was absurdly huge, and I was able to get it running, even though it requires a crazy amount of VRAM. And I was really expecting it to be something special. It's okay. It's not great. It's not very efficient for the amount of memory that it uses. One would expect it to be better. It is not. It is okay. Grok is not grokking everything very well, unfortunately. And you know what else is not grokking X very well, unfortunately?
Nintendo Switch is removing integration for X, formerly Twitter. This blew my mind. Like, I didn't even realize. I guess it makes sense because if you want to post like a screenshot, they have integration with different social media apps. And the reason they cite that they're not doing it anymore is because the API charges too much.
Too much for Nintendo?
Nintendo, yeah.
Oh, Lord help small developers. It's no wonder TweetDeck was just like, okay, we're out. We're done.
Yeah.
This should have been sorted somewhere else.
We're just all over the place today. It's fine.
It's okay.
RFK Jr. Super PAC will sue Meta after campaign infomercial temporarily blocked.
If the Meta lawyers know what they're doing, they're going to be able to subpoena a lot of really interesting information about this, and they'll probably go away based on not wanting some of that information to be in the public record. But yeah, Meta basically looked at this and said, this isn't good.
What if Meta released the brainworm story to be a distraction?
Oh, it had been trending on Twitter and X, the platform owned by Musk, who in recent, and then it was just like, nope, gone. It's like, wait, you can't do that. A human did that. You're not allowed to do that. The whole public square thing. But they're a private company, and as we've been reminded time and time again, kind of sucks.
Sucks to suck. Threads is testing cross-posting from Instagram globally.
Speaking of things that suck.
Does anyone use Threads? Does anyone? That'll be an engagement challenge because I know none of us do.
Yeah, that is a good engagement challenge. Do you use Threads? I looked at it. I think I signed up for it. And it was basically unusable the first couple of weeks that it was out, but I think it got a few updates, and it's less terrible.
I remember a lot of people being upset because it didn't have like private messages and stuff like that. I think that's not true anymore. But
I think there's one or two European countries that have blocked it also because the login integrations, it basically is not really truly standalone.
Yeah.
So not okay in the EU. And you know what's not okay in the US anymore?
FCC explicitly prohibits fast lanes, closing possible net neutrality loophole. Hooray!
Yeah, we covered this last week, but
There's, I guess, an update in this article.
well, it's the FCC has clarified, because I think when we first covered this, I sort of made the comment that's like, if you want to pay for a gaming service that's explicitly fast, maybe that's okay. But I kind of figured the FCC would do this when I said that, and they have. They've said basically, no, you can't have a fast lane. This is not okay. But this is still what this actually does explicitly okay that nobody has picked up on is if a customer wants to use the IP type of service, IP quality parts of the header and say this is bulk traffic or this is latency sensitive traffic, the ISP can honor that. And there probably is some money to be made if you have a local or regional ISP that's not one of the mega conglomerates that honors that setting. So if you're running, a bulk download and video conferencing, you can choose to prioritize your video conferencing traffic over your other traffic, like by software controls you set on your router. And that's great. That's fantastic. That's why that's there. ISPs taking control of that and making sure that like a residential connection is always awful and a commercial connection is always a little bit better, has been a thing that ISPs have explored. But it's not nice.
What a soft way of putting it. That's not nice.
It's really like, I'm just thinking about, because, you know, if you get a gigabit residential connection, it's like, $150 a month. If you get a gigabit commercial connection, it's like $1,000 a month. And they still don't expect you to actually use all of that. Like, it still may be rate limited. It's almost always behind a contract. And they will bill the ever-loving bejesus out of you if you cancel the commercial contract early, whereas a lot of the time the residential contract is prohibited in FCC or FTC rules or other federal rules. But yeah, there's not as much difference between a residential fiber optic connection from an ISP and a commercial fiber optic connection from an ISP for the vast majority of ISPs. Some ISPs, that's not true. But most of them, it's like, I'm going to get the really expensive commercial connection. Similar packet loss, similar route.
You just get to pay more.
Yeah, you just get to pay
Isn't
more.
that great?
It's really unfortunate because there could be more differentiation there where that would make people feel less bad about paying so much for the commercial internet connection. But nope.
I'm sensing a little bit of anger.
Yeah.
How about that?
Might
Maybe
be
recent anger.
Might be a little bit of personal experience there. It's just like, why your internet bill should be going down, not up. What is this? Well, that's the end of it. It's going to be a quick week, I think. I have a tendency to go through stuff faster just because it's fine.
Well, sorting will be a little strange this week. It's fine. Well, you guys, you'll like it.
We've got business stories and what else are we going to do? I don't know. Business and something else coming up
We did
next.
social. We did it a little weird. We were going to do business and security, but security was kind of long too. So anyway, we'll see you guys in the next one.
Assuming that I can find the window.
That cursor is really small. Ryan always complains about that. Anyway, bye!